Yeah, I don't know.
And then
I'm
the
not
other
sure.
question is, the other part of the building is gray, so if they were on there, you wouldn't really see them.
Right. Yeah, and other options that other people have done is they've done screening, so they put up walls
Or
of
like
the same
awnings,
material.
even awnings
Yeah,
over them or something.
or they put up
Yeah.
landscaping, you know. So one thing Starbucks did is, I don't know if you noticed it, but they did put up a wall for their trash receptacles or dumpster.
Okay,
And so there are those kinds of tools
Yeah.
that you can do to hide some of those things, even if it is on a facade that faces traffic and faces
Yeah.
your main street.
I don't know if they left the room for a screen, privacy fence or whatever.
Yeah, I'm not sure either in that situation whether it really
Because of
is
the
there.
drive-through.
There's,
Because that's what I thought, they'd need a screen there. Or something.
yeah,
And then the ladder is random.
that's, yeah.
yeah, the letter also
They didn't
seems
even
like
finish
it could
it,
be
really.
painted the right color. I mean, if it was painted the same color as the siding, like the utility boxes, it wouldn't really be that visible.
Yeah.
So, right,
But that side looks nice.
it does, right. The side facing the parking lot,
Yeah.
that literally anybody driving by can't see,
I
looks
know.
great.
Yeah, but I understand their dilemma too, because once that is all developed in there, when you go in there to park, I guess their plan is to have like a cul-de-sac of businesses, right?
Right.
Business fronts.
Right.
So, but I just feel like there's got to be some way with the time and money that's been invested in the downtown improvement that we're at least able to define our main drags and like require some kind of
Yeah.
at least a nod toward a face, you know?
Yeah, well,
Even if it is kind of the back of their business.
well, in that plan, most of, like, I thought the new standard that we were going toward was, like, basically, if we want to, in addition to catering to people in cars, also cater to folks on foot and bike. Like, our town is not for young people who aren't old enough to drive or older people who can't drive anymore. Like, our town is not for them.
Yeah.
And I think that's hopefully something that we want to, like, we want it to be for everybody. And so in the downtown plan, there were some new streetscapes where basically the frontage, basically you'd flop. The Walgreens building would be up front to whatever main street it was on, and then the parking lot would be, quote unquote, behind the building, so that you could serve cars, but you primarily served foot traffic first.
Okay.
Because I think also like it increased foot traffic is like better for business and looks nicer.
Yeah, and definitely more attractive if you're seeing storefronts instead of parking lots while
Right.
you're driving through town.
Totally.
Yeah.
Is that an easy one? I feel like that could be, maybe, at least for the Sterling Highway,
The parking situation
yeah,
for new development,
for new development.
I think so. I mean, I don't know how easy it is, but it's certainly possible, and communities have done that. I think you probably have more bang for your buck on this riverfront concept, because it's focusing on new development, and our Sterling Highway, for the most part, is now it's developed, and we're talking about a small amount of infill here and there. And that concept with building forward really gets it to that issue of walkability and creating an attractive place that's comfortable to walk and bike and be out. And I'm not sure, honestly, that the Sterling Highway is ever going to be that.
What about
Just
those
because
car
it's,
lots?
pardon?
All those car lots, it just looks like one big parking lot and you drive down.
Yeah, it's, so I think it's a difficult situation with the Sterling, because it's also, I think about Soldotna, and I think about a lot of towns that have been bypassed with new roads that funnel things through and actually then provide opportunities on that old stretch to do really unique things and convert them. I look at the map of Soldotna and I try to figure out where a bypass
Yeah.
would ever go, and I don't see it happening, at least not in our lifetimes. So I think, like I said, Caitlin, I think it's certainly doable, and you can pass requirements to have that happen, but I think they're gonna have the most effect where where there's opportunities for new development, and that you can actually build consistency from one lot to the next one so that you have a uniform street front with all those buildings up front, up close, so that people can have an enjoyable experience and not have to go from one lot that's up front to the used car lot where all the cars parked up front to something else.
Yeah, I mean, I think on all of our streets, I think if the buildings were, like, if there was a facade with the front door for foot traffic that was on the street and the sidewalk, and then car traffic, vehicles parked behind the building, I guess, like, for even on the Sterling Highway, I'm trying to think of, like, if there's any more spots left. But if someone wanted to demolish a building, and which happens all the time, the firehouse, I guess, might get demolished. And then I think so that's gonna happen. So do we wanna, over time, have, I think whatever the thing is that we decide to do, making sure our grandmas and our kids can, like, walk into that building safely is kind of the goal, while allowing, drivers to also get there. But yeah, there's no silver bullet, but it does.
Yeah.
I think that downtown improvement plan has some great things, and maybe it's just like getting that into code somehow.
Right. And like you say, incremental change over time, and yeah, some things do take time. Not unless there's comments, yeah.
I guess, like, as, so as staff, like, what do you wish would have been in code before this building went in?
Well, let's go through this and then come back to this at the end. And I think we'll ask that of everybody. How's that
Yeah,
sound?
sounds good.
Okay. Because I think you'll see some other things here that we haven't talked about yet that may influence what you think and say. So now we're into the older development. Of course, we're on the Sterling Highway. You're seeing the back of Wilderness Way and Pilates and Subway. So these, like Starbucks, were built with the orientation towards the inside and with their backs to the main highway. So this concept has been going on for a long time.
I see, like, a nice walking path for grandmas and strollers and some, like, timber framed awnings. If I were Queen, that was like, okay, we've built the infrastructure for cars. We did really well. Let's now build the infrastructure for people who can't afford a car, who aren't old enough to drive, so that they can go to Wilderness Way too.
And they don't have to walk through the parking lot to get to it.
Yeah.
Or ride their bike through the parking lot. Yeah.
And I think this is an example of like you pointed out in the plan, the downtown plan, that showed some instances where there actually is space where you could have a sidewalk or pathway off of the highway and closer to the development, like within this green space. Let's go to the next one. Spur Highway. So this is another example of a long, skinny building on a long, skinny lot. And so the chiropractor, I think, is in this building. I forget what else is in there. I think a hair salon. Pet washing too? Okay. Really? Oh, I didn't know that. So there is the Spur Highway side of it is blank. Let's go to the next one. Also older development that it was positioned so that its facade faces the parking rather than the street. Bailey's on the Spur. And this one's on the corner of Marcus and Kobach. This one's got a little bit of architectural detail too. I think Jenny knows this one.
It took me a minute, actually.
with the, I don't know, what do you call the accents over the doorways?
Those are just gable, those are
Gables.
actually for snow, I think.
Oh,
In
okay.
fact, one of them got knocked off by snow before I put up those guards up there.
Oh, okay. Let's go to the next
Yeah, we
one.
could probably use a little bit of timber framing right there. Go for another storefront improvement. I never thought of that as the storefront, but you're right, on Marcus it is.
Spur Highway again, and this is on the corner of Corral. This is the old PCHS building. I forget what's in there now. There's a consultant and I can't remember what else. But again, it's oriented to the shape of the lot so that its main facade actually faces Corral, and these secondary facades face Aspen and face the spur.
Yeah.
And actually, the back of it is very visible too along the spur. But yeah, oh, go ahead. Yeah, no, that's fine. Back to the Y. So this is the mall at the Y. Multiple frontages here. There's 3 frontages I mentioned. Which way do you pick to put your main facade, your main frontage? Let's go to the next one. Back on Kobuk. This is probably one of the older buildings in the area. More of a warehousing type facility now. But here's an example that we wanted to bring forward with regard to bay doors and where on the facade, or which facade, I should say, is appropriate to have bay doors. So I think in this example, you've got bay doors both on
Wilson and.
Wilson, thank you. I couldn't think of that name. Wilson and Kobuk.
One thing that's kind of interesting about the idea of referring to bay doors in the code is there's a really cool coffee shop in Southeast Portland called Stumptown that has a bay door, and that opens up to like their area. And in Anchorage, there's Johnny's Produce and That Feeling Co. That they took over an old garage, basically, so they have these really cool bay doors,
Right.
And so if we just rule out, no, you can't have a bay door, then there's this stylish concept that you can't use. And like the Hostess building, I mean, I've looked at that for years and gone, someone could do something really cool with that. And I don't think you would have to get rid of the bay doors, or even if the firehouse moved and someone wanted to use that, you could have a great indoor market that in the summer months, those doors could be opened. And
Right.
so if we want to talk about bay doors, then we really need to define somehow that it's utilitarian. It's going into your storage area, or it's where your product is getting dropped off, because used as a storefront, I don't really think it's a problem to have bay doors. I think it could look great.
Yeah, no, I've
So,
seen that too
we'd
in a
have to
number of
define,
communities where
yeah.
they incorporate older bay doors into, they open them up and put out patio tables, and they have this great outdoor space that leads right inside to their business, and
Yeah.
it can be pretty cool.
Portland has a lot of those.
Who does?
Portland.
Portland? Okay.
On Division Street, yeah, they took a lot of old gas stations and made restaurants out of them.
Yeah, that's where the Stumptown is, right there.
So,
in
yeah,
that
so-
same area.
Yeah, no, I think you point out also, the need to have some flexibility and to work with different buildings and older buildings especially, and new buildings, like you say, you can specify if it's a loading door, okay, it's not going to be on the main straight. It needs to be on a different facade. But if it's part of your facade that's going to serve your customers, okay, let's figure something out and have some flexibility so that you can make that a possibility, but still move deliveries to the back of the building or some other location.
Do you have any like photos with snow on the ground? Because they all look, look different, the trees lose its leaves and all that.
Nope, it's all within the past month. Another example of the bay doors, and I wish, I didn't think of this, and I don't think we have any examples of businesses with the bay doors going the opposite direction. So, oh, we do? Who? Oh. Okay, yeah, okay, you're right. So there's an example of bay
Oh,
doors
okay.
not facing the main drag. Yeah,
Okay.
thanks.
But see, that building right there, if it was converted into something that was like retail, could be very cool. And you would be glad that you had all those, and they have windows, so I mean, they're practical, but they're also architecturally interesting and even beautiful, I think, with the glass bay doors. Like C&M Mufflers ones don't look very nice, so,
Yeah,
I mean, if that was facing the street, it would be like, oh, especially if it just popped up new, we'd be like, what?
right, exactly, yeah. And let's go to the next one. Is the next one drive-throughs? I can't remember.
Hey, you caught someone jaywalking in that photo. What was that?
Did we? Oh,
That just means we need another, it's not safe, right? We need an overpass or something. We need another light. They're getting, at least there's one more in there now.
so we added these, we talked a little bit earlier about streetscapes and facades and the connection between the two. And this is, a couple examples of streets defining kind of communities and community spaces. And that they can really give character to a community. And I think an example here in Soldotna is Binkley Street. I think that one, Binkley, has looked a little bit differently. It's a little bit more unique. It's got pathways that go off a little farther. It's landscaped. It's got wide paths. I think it's an example that helps distinguish it from any other street in town. Yeah, and that fourth bullet point, streetscapes give an impression of the quality of a community, and I think that's true. Good streetscapes do leave an impression and an image. And then the next slide is the connection of facades with streets, and as it states in that bottom bullet, that they do bear a positive relationship to the street and adjacent structures. So there is that connectivity, again, that we talked about earlier of, I think, when is it appropriate to, or does your street design match your facade intent and design standards? So they should work together. And so, and that's, again, I think the opportunity that we have, if we are able to go forward with a riverfront concept, we can design not only the street, but also the type of buildings that we want to see on that street, and really would provide us a lot of flexibility and opportunity. And you guys probably have seen something like this before, the basic components of a facade. This is obviously, we don't see many facades like this, but the components are pretty much the same: doors, cornices, entryways, base panels, and so on. There are a number of different ways communities address facades. They sometimes look at the size of the facades and how they relate to the buildings on either side, essentially the scale, the types of materials that are used, where the entrances are placed, its relationship to the road. What else? I think I may have jotted a few other things down on the notes there, Jen, as far as how communities, I don't remember what they were, but maybe you've got them in there.
Yeah, so you had elements in the front, secondary, and tertiary facades may also require compatibility with buildings on either side. Roof forms and building materials identification of a service or utility wall, modulation like bump outs, windows and glazings, awnings, orientation, and screening of utilities.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different elements that communities have used or that, that they've either created designs or standards for. And it varies from community to community because each community has a different vision for what they want their downtown or their streets or this particular district to look like. Does the next slide continue that concept? It does, okay. Building configuration design, arrange buildings so they are oriented toward the street in a manner that promotes pedestrian activity, safety, and community. We talked about that. Human scaled buildings that emphasize design and placement of the main entrance on the main street. Connections through and to public walkways, and promoting pedestrian bicycle amenities to maximize alternative forms of transportation. So those are some of the things that most communities are looking at, not most communities, but many communities are looking at. Let's go back to that Starbucks one and get to Caitlin's question about what would we do differently on it. And I think that's a good question to ask, and within the scope of knowing our town and what might be acceptable. Anybody want to take a crack at it?
I think they would have orientated it to like the back corner over by where Ford used to be there, and then just turn the whole thing so like that was their front, and then their drive-through could be behind that, and nobody really cares, and you just come out. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if we just would have had the opportunity to do an aerial view, what's it look like? Where's your utility side? You've got 2 utility sides just about. Actually, there is. I think one's gas, maybe. And if you just move that over to the corner of the lot, and then the whole front would have been parking lot, kind of to match basically what Kitty Corner across the street and Walgreens does, is maybe it's not the best, but your parking lot is all in front to match what we already got going on. But at least you would have had their storefront facing the street. Like what they put money into and design and value into, they would have been able to show off, opposed to here's our electrical and gas and our ladder that's halfway done. Just planning and on the front end,
I
which
just
is
think even if you were to require at least 2 of the facades to be or the faces of the building to be front facing, like to appear front facing, no matter how they're going to use them. Then if they wanted to then creatively hide their utilities somewhere because they really did need to have a storefront on their parking lot as well, then they could have done that. This one is unique because it's on a corner. Because, I mean, I do think it's important that we at least have the appearance of a front, something pleasant.
well, imagine
to
like
look
if Fred
at,
Meyers would have
at
did
least
that.
along the Sterling Highway.
Like,
Then-
you know what I mean? Like if Fred Meyers, have you driven behind Fred Meyers before?
Right, yeah.
It's the same difference.
Yeah.
Like put Fred Meyers like that to the Sterling Highway, and that's what we've got.
Yeah.
Like,
And it's interesting, your idea of the parking lots in the back. Like, I've never really thought about, Fred Meyer's just been here a long time, I've never really thought about how it is sitting there. And I don't know, planning-wise, when you're planning parking and you're doing the architectural side of it, how that concept would work. Like, if it was kind of tucked up closer so that you really just see the faces. The thing is that 9 months of the year, we're all getting out of our cars, or maybe, 6, maybe some people are hardcore, but, so, I don't know. If we were all parking behind Fred Meyer, would we then be walking up to those sidewalks and going in those front doors, or would they just be underused, or you'd have to have, like, nice entrances on every side. There does have to
Mhm.
be a not nice side to pretty much every building.
Maybe. I mean, I feel like in our town, yes, but I've seen other towns.
Or for
where
big box
there's, like,
stores, there's,
there's basically foot traffic entrance, like
Mhm.
a facade on every side. Even next to the utility doors, there's still a
Mhm.
facade for people.
Yeah.
And that's what, yeah, like the downtown plan basically bumps all the buildings up right to the front, like that other, like one of the last slides you showed. And basically, like designates parking kind of on the edges of the community. And then I think a lot of towns now are taking away all of their required minimum parking. Or just like, I mean, Mexico City is like a huge urban area, but they just eliminated everything. So the only parking that's available is on street, and they're taking away all of their parking lots. And I know, like, some of this stuff that seems quite radical, I guess, but our town is so small, and I think there's more and more ways, there's crazy things. There's like heated sidewalks so that you literally can walk in the wintertime in a safe way around town. And I'm not saying that any of this stuff is doable in the next year, but it does, yeah, like having a pedestrian entrance on the sidewalk areas or on the main streets, like that would look so much better.
yeah.
I think Wilderness Way is a great example of something that's the back of the building, but they put their logos out there for the different or different brands they carry. They did a mural, and for example, Caitlin, what you're saying, like that'd be a prime example, right in front of the fire department and the police station. They have that sidewalk that goes down there, like that concrete pathway, and a bench, and they have those really nice trees. I love going off path and just going down that, and it's like the shortest little run, but it's wonderful. But this is like an example of them doing something with that,
Right,
let's just make it nicer.
Yeah.
But having a pathway go through there with a little bench seating area, and it would spice it up.
So many of these things are interrelated, encouraging local businesses and making sure all the places in town are connected. I know a lot of other communities are they're giving tax incentives to businesses who put living spaces or apartments on the second floor of all of their retail spaces downtown. So basically, instead of requiring people to have a car, it's saying, well, if say there were apartments above this whole thing right here, you don't need a car anymore because the apartment is so tiny, you can literally walk the door even in wintertime. And I think if we could magically incentivize all businesses, like you have to pay taxes for the next 10 years if you put apartments on top of your roof, and you'll pay for it, with rent, and we'll get a bunch of affordable housing in town, and then basically have a walkable community. Boom. Then all of a sudden all this other stuff is like, oh, well, now we have to design these places for all the people who live here and don't have cars. And then we stop designing for so many cars, and all of the spaces change.
I think that area would be similar to what you see outside of Fred Meyer with the picnic tables. I don't know if they're still there, but kind of do a walking path in the middle of that, or just picnic tables or something.
You talking about right where the entry, that rock lined area? Yeah, okay.
I think McDonald's might have something similar.
Well, there is actually a bench and a trash can right down there, I believe. So when I took this photo, I'm up on top, and right below me is the sidewalk, and then to the right, of the picture, to the north kind of, is where the bench is.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Yeah,
It's with-
yeah, there's a bench
It's a
right in
DOT,
front of me.
DOT did a number of, they call them, I think, like pocket parks or something like that, where they did install a number of small benches and little cutouts for whatever, and those are over by the CES DES as well. Jen, can you go back to Starbucks? I just want to see if there's any other comments as far as what we would potentially do differently on Starbucks.
Yeah, I think if it was actually turned opposite so that you are seeing this when you're passing buckets, you're seeing this on your left right here, this. Because I think that even though the utilities are back there, they're on the back half of the building. But the other thing is when you do have a drive-through, it's never safe for someone that's walking or biking. Because they have to cross, that lane has to be for driving. So if they had done it this way, then the exit could be out to the street, but there should still be, or maybe it would have to go back in their parking lot. I'm not sure. It's hard to plan a drive-through. It takes up so much space.
Well, think about like Kenai McDonald's. I think it's kind of almost identical. So when you go into that parking lot, Kenai McDonald's, the drive-through's behind, and then it
Yeah.
comes up at you.
But there is a way to
But
get
their
on the
storefront
sidewalk to
is
the storefront.
facing, so I think if they literally, like, if they just would have rotated it and moved
Yeah.
it to the back corner of their lot, it would have been perfect.
What do you guys think about drive-throughs, like in this instance? So when this gets busy, and once it opens up, you can see the drive-through panel on the left where cars will be ordering, and there will be cars then driving between the building and the Sterling Highway, wrapping around to the side to pay, on the right there, on the photo on the right. What about the orientation of drive-throughs and on buildings? Should they be facing the main street? Should they be located somewhere else? Is this concept okay, or
This is almost identical to Soldotna McDonald's, right? Like, the drive-through's right there.
drive-throughs on the
It's,
Yeah,
you're
that was
facing,
basically
it's on
yeah.
two streets, yeah.
yep.
But
Well, in
it's-
this,
but it's very
in this
similar.
scenario, why not include, if the drive-through is going to be right there, right next to the road, why not implement a 6 to 7 foot wall that blocks the cars within the drive-through from the road? And, the wall be artistically designed, but essentially just to eliminate that traffic, drive-through traffic from the general population driving by, if the driveway is, no matter what, going to be right next to the main road.
I think I've seen that. I think I've seen that in a couple different places. What I've seen just more often in the little bit of work that we've done in researching this is just where communities just say, no, you can't have a drive-through lane that's in between your main street and the building itself. You've got to have it on a side. And it's mainly a matter of aesthetics and at times safety. Whoever mentioned the walkways and pedestrian crossings, that can become an issue. So again, there's different ways to deal with it, different tools, different techniques.
Yeah. Well, if you just think of the Soldotna McDonald's, if you're on a bike or you're a pedestrian, you can't get to their door without either walking through the parking lot or across their drive-through. So, but it also is extremely limiting. If you're thinking, okay, I own this piece of land and I want to drive through on it, it's pretty,
Yeah.
it's already very limiting. So then if we're going to say the drive-through can't be here, but you also have to have, 14 to 36 parking spaces and, a safe way to cross. There's so many different things that come into play that it could become. And then the other thing is we don't want to just say, let's just not have drive-throughs because now in the time of COVID, it's kind of the thing, it's.
Well, I
It
think
is.
like if we were to put in there that they had to meet with the Planning and Zoning Commission, for example, or somebody, then you could talk it out,
Right.
you bring in the voice of reason and you have 10 minds all think, how can we do this differently? And just provide that opportunity to, on the planning side of things. That's what we're doing is planning, right?
I agree with that.
Homestead?
Homestead, you know, still have the patio thing on Homestead, and then the frontage on Sterling Highway, and then the drive-throughs basically are allowed, but you have to have them not on the main frontage. And then, you know, you don't have to have as many parking spaces, so you can downsize our parking requirement to encourage other forms in there.
Yeah, I think,
Most of these parking spaces sit empty.
yeah, and 2 points. One is on parking, I'm going to come back to that, but also to Jenny's point about sometimes you're just limited by the site you've got and the roads that are around you, and there's not much you can do. And I think that's where it becomes important that we have enough flexibility in the code where we can say, these are our goals, this is our vision, and let's see how we can get there.
And I mean, maybe if we could come up with 6 things that are super critical to us, and if they make 3 of them, or then 4 of
Right.
them, you know, and like
Yeah.
ways of incentivizing.
Yep.
And I was even thinking about like just thinking about places to park bikes. So, you know, what if we had them, like, what if every quarter mile or half mile along the Sterling, we wanted to have one, whether the city provided them or whether we did it with incentivizing when someone's doing something new, that they could get something if they would provide a pod for bike parking. I don't know, things like that we could throw in that are like, you know, hey, you fall right into this stretch where we don't have any place for, you know, and maybe someone would even be willing to give up a little bit of their land or their landscaping or whatever to bring a path through there that was pulled away from the roads, you know.
Right.
In their landscaping, maybe they could get a benefit from adding something in like that, like a.
Yeah, I like the idea that you
And
mentioned of
access from-
like a menu of, you know,
Things that we
right,
want to
you know.
see, but then it's not like you can't build if you don't do this.
Yeah,
Because there's times that you.
right, we're shooting 3 of 5 or 3 of 10 or whatever the numbers are, or
Yeah.
whatever the
Or
components are.
if your utilities must be road facing, then we need to have you do this. Whether they're allowed to paint them or build a buffer or maybe landscape right up as close as they can to it. Like if there was a little bit of landscaping between their lane, we wouldn't see those.
Right.
When I think, I think the incentive for the business owner that's wanting to build would be, what does this community want so I'm not hated?
Right.
I want to bring in more business. I don't want a bunch of people picketing or an entire planning and zoning commission or city council hating me, even though I'm following all the rules and I'm going to worm my way in here. I want to be accepted. So I think that I think they'd be open to like, here's what I want to do. What do you guys think? Let's do it differently so I'm accepted into this community. I think that, like, for example, Dairy Queen, their storefront is there, drive-through behind. Arby's, storefront is there, drive-throughs behind. But Old Burger King or Odie's, I actually hate their exit of their drive-through.
Yeah.
But they did it behind as well.
Right.
Taco Bell as well, even in the Fred Meyer parking lot, they got it right. Like, I just think if there would have been an opportunity, I think that however Starbucks works or runs, like, whoever owns it in Soldotna, I think they would have been totally open to being like, what do you guys think? Like, and I think that, did we even talk to them before did we make some recommendations?
So Starbucks, because it's, you know, it's in the commercial district, and it's an allowable use or principal permitted use within the commercial district. So they are required to put in a site plan, which mainly covers, you know, are you meeting the basic standards of zoning, the setbacks, the landscaping, the parking, those elements. So they are required to do that, but they aren't required to come before the planning commission because they're, like I say, it's a principally permitted use. Only conditional uses and variances.
So in-house then, between ourselves, can that be something that when a new business is gonna come in, maybe that site plan that you guys are reviewing is brought before the commission just to discuss? And what are your recommendations or your thoughts before we go ahead and stamp this thing and say, let's go ahead and?
In some cases, we do, if there's
Yeah.
questions like you had before you, the the VA center, and that was an example that was a principal permitted use. But because of its location right next to residential areas, we wanted to get your feedback on it. This one is pretty cut and dried. It's commercial district. There isn't anything that's unique about it. You don't have any, as a commission, you don't have the power to add additional restrictions or conditions on it because it is a principally permitted use, and that's why it's administratively reviewed. But like I say, we do, in unique cases, do bring them forward to you for your input and advice. I can tell you that we did have conversations with the designers on this building, and we did make recommendations.
Yeah.
But like I say,
Yeah, they didn't heed.
they met the code as far as what they built.
They don't need to be welcomed by the community or accepted. They just need to like sell in July.
Yeah.
They don't really care. I mean, they don't
Yeah.
have to care. I would
Yeah.
say, I don't know if they care. But they definitely don't need to like welcome into Starbucks. It doesn't matter. It's just all about tourist traffic and
Yeah.
there's traffic in July. So I think the best way for us to have a good streetscape is to say what we want. You know, I like your idea of, the drive-throughs are in the back. You gotta have a nice looking
Mhm.
pedestrian entrance on the street. And if you're on a corner, have one whole street. Figure out how to make it happen. You can do it. We know you're smart.
Right.
Lots of other communities do it.
Mhm.
So I'm sure they'll have stuff.
I have a question. Are there any trash cans in this apartment? You know, like if you want walking and somebody walking and hold them their cup of coffee and then throw it away, lock or something. I had this happen to me in downtown Anchorage. Walk around, trash can, throw something there, and I see trash on the road. I called them up and said, "You left trash cans around here." And so they got those old post office boxes, for trash. I don't know if you've seen those down in
Really?
Anchorage, where they
Yeah.
put trash in them, and each business could decorate them.
Do they just go whoosh? Or does someone have to come around and empty it? It's like the Grinch. Whoosh.
And there are trash cans, I know like downtown Portland might have them, and they've got stuff that you can't get into them, not to pull down, but have, and I don't even know if there's trash cans in businesses, maybe they don't want that, I don't know, but that doesn't.
Some businesses do, but no, the city doesn't have trash cans except for in its facilities like the parks. We've got them there, but there aren't trash cans that are placed strategically at intersections or certain parts of town. But yeah, it very well may be needed. Maybe that's a topic too that we talk about when we get into wayfinding signs and those kinds of things. It might be a street furniture, that kind of stuff that would be appropriate to talk about it.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I think there are where the state did these little pocket parks. I believe they did install trash cans. I don't know who empties them, if
Yeah,
anybody,
that is interesting,
but
yeah.
I believe there are trash cans there. They've got this kind of metal curl look to them, if I remember right, but I don't know who maintains them.
Yeah, there's the ones in Soldotna Creek Park that are the bear-proof ones.
And then there's some solar ones at different
Yeah.
spots. So yeah, a lot of different styles. Other comments, feedback on facades?
Screening utilities requiring some, whatever it is, whether it's bushes or a brick wall or a mural painted by a local artist or
A buffer bed would be maybe like the landscaping, maybe a buffer bed.
Or even just a 4-foot pony wall would visually, sitting in your car, you would probably not see
Yeah,
the lower part of that building.
true. They could just build a little fence.
Or, you know what I mean? I don't know, something, 6 foot, 4 foot, I don't know.
Yeah.
don't have,
Yeah, we don't have any rules against how many stories we can have, do we? Just nobody does it. Do we have-
stories, yeah, we have height limitations.
What's our height limitation?
And I think in the
2-story
commercial
or-
district, it's 36, if I recall.
Okay,
So
so
you,
maybe a three-story building.
3-story, yeah. Thinking of a high-rise? What do you?
I mean, yeah, I may as well go up, right? The problem is I don't have room for parking. Yeah. Parking is our biggest problem, so.
Yeah, I think, but like, if you could have affordable housing for like young employees, like right above where you, they wouldn't need
Oh, yeah.
parking.
Mhm.
I think that's like,
Yeah.
then you get.
Yeah. But those few people wouldn't need parking, but if you have built something that's popular, then you're gonna draw people that do need parking, so.
River view from the second story would be pretty cool.
Those
Yeah.
probably wouldn't be affordable housing, they would be in high demand.
Yeah, right, it'd be high rent district, for sure. Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I think a lot of the same things that you guys identified, you know, the utility screening, orientation of the drive-through, the concept of multiple facades so that if you are facing multiple streets, that you perhaps have a primary where your main entrance is, but then your secondary also has some of the same elements as the primary. So maybe it has the same materials, maybe it's got a certain amount of windows or glazing to make it look like a storefront, even if it's not
Right.
looking at something, maybe it's just a smoked or shaded, screened kind of glazing that appears to be a storefront.
Yeah.
Architectural elements, again, so that it's consistent from one side to the other if it's facing. Those are the kinds of things that I would think would be attractive.
Yeah.
Probably, yes, it would definitely add to the expense, but
Well, and I mean-
that's that balance that we gotta, you know, and again, maybe it gets back to that thing that you were talking about, Jenny, where you've got the certain amount of elements that we want to see, and they get to pick how, you know, at least certain number of them, and whether it's architectural, vegetation, how the drive-through is orientated, or how pedestrians access, give them those options to get
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, and like when you have the two facades, then you're allowed to have two signs, two street facing, right? You can have a sign
Yeah,
for each.
multiple facades,
So, I mean,
multiple
maybe we
street
could make something
frontages.
hand in hand with that, like if you want your
Right.
second sign, that side of the building also needs to have architectural detail and
Right,
some of these elements.
Yep.
So that it's not just the back side with the sign on it.
yeah, because, you know, the picture on the right, I think looks really good.
Yeah.
It looks, I like
I
the little.
haven't seen it since it got done, so I'm like, oh, that looks nice. Do we have that in our town? I don't know.
Yeah.
We're not gonna see it unless we go to Lucy's Market, right? Unless we're leaving Keener River Brewing. Yeah.
So, yeah. That's where, yeah, those are the comments I would have on it.
Yeah. It's a beautiful building, just the orientation is sad.
Well, it's like only beautiful from like one side of it.
Right there,
I think
yeah,
that's pretty.
yeah, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, and next door, so the Starbucks is the dark brown, and then the gray on the left, if we're looking at the left photo, the gray on the left will be a unit that's gonna hold Domino's. Yep, and it's designed to expand out to an additional 2 units, at least 2 units. Right. Yes, so depending on, right.
Is the rest of their concept, has it been submitted, or can we do
No.
our code quick before they do it?
It hasn't been, nothing's been submitted at this point.
So that the next 2 units could at least have the appearance of something. if there's gonna be two more units.
Yeah, it's, right, it would share a common wall, but. Well,
They could,
no, yeah, it's
they could
possible to make
changes to
changes.
their architectural, I don't know.
Yeah, you know,
If
I
it's gonna
think
share that wall, I don't know, I'll just take the siding off and.
you would
attach it.
have to write something like building additions are required to,
Meet
you
the
know,
new
meet
code, yeah.
these standards, something to that effect.
So you still could have a pedestrian entrance that, I think it might be nice, I don't know if you can get to whatever that is, Domino's through Starbucks, but if there was a pedestrian facade so that kids and whomever else who aren't in cars, because they do exist in our town, if they can safely get up to the front side of that building, then, it would at least look nicer.
Mhm. I think next time, our next presentation is going to be, as I mentioned, on the um, the different uses within downtown and different types of districts or overlay districts. And Jen has already started doing some work on that, gathering data on our existing area and vacancies, land uses. And so we've got a little bit of a jump on that. But I think that'll be our next one. But that's all we've got for you tonight. Do you have anything else that you want to add, Jen, or no? Then I'll turn it back to Caitlin.
Thank you for taking time to put together a great presentation and help us have a good conversation. I really appreciate the work and all the ideas. Yeah, it makes me think that, you know, those parking lots, maybe in 20 years, like that land will look more like your last slide. I mean, who knows? Where Walgreens sells its parking lot, there's on-street parking all the way down the Sterling Highway, and there's a building right there that's right up abutting the, you know, who knows what will happen, but
Right.
I mean, I think anything's possible.
I have a question, because just looking at Walgreens, do you know, based on the city's required formula, do they have too much parking? Or are they just not as busy as maybe you thought they would be? There's a
I
huge
don't-
parking lot and very few
Yeah,
cars.
no,
and-
they meet our parking standard. Whether they exceed it, I don't recall. I don't think they do, because that's a unique development. And Jen, maybe if you go to that aerial view, you'll see what's going on there. So what you actually have there are 3 lots. You've got Walgreens, the building, on one lot. The parking area in front is a separate lot. And then there's a third lot, this triangle shape there to the left. The parking that's available satisfies both Walgreens and a proposed 5,600 square foot building on that triangle lot that has yet
Oh,
to be
okay.
developed.
Okay,
The lot in front of Walgreens is actually separated because it's a former brownfield that's restricted in its use, so it's capped, and it can't be constructed on
so there
according
has
to
to
the
be a
current,
parking lot, okay.
right, current rules, laws with regard to environmental contamination. So, but it can be capped and it can be parked on, and so that was.
Can it be planted on? I mean. could
I
they-
believe
yeah.
so, yeah.
Just thinking other ways that maybe if the city could say, we see that you have too much parking here, and if you were willing to, we would participate in, you know, whatever. I
Yeah.
mean, because if we could make a bigger green strip and have a bike path go through it or something like that, then there'd be less pavement.
Right.
But I do see, I mean, I guess that square there, is that where a building would go?
Yeah.
And
it
that's
is.
also another reason we need to get our, whatever our new requirements are, because look at that right there. I mean,
Two-
that,
Yeah, 2 corners, or a corner there.
yeah, and
Um,
so their, probably their front would be facing the parking lot toward the Y, but those other 2 are gonna be the most visible. Or, I don't know, the one will be visible from Keener River Brewing, I guess it would be those front two that would be the most visible.
And this is slightly different because I believe Walgreens does own the building and the parking lot, but this is still in the ownership of somebody else, this triangle.
And I think it was
Interesting.
sold.
So do they lease
Well,
their
no, I
drive-through
shouldn't say
lane?
that. I think it's, you're right. I think it's,
Oh, it was sold to Urgent Care
well, yeah,
recently, maybe?
well, I don't know if it was sold or if it's leased to them.
So it's gonna be like a medical office.
Yep.
That's supposed to be in our medical district. Keep our stores in the main drive. Yeah.
I think every other building is supposed to be a
Is allowed
Starbucks.
to have a Starbucks?
Well, and then Starbucks basically restricted, there's no other properties around that area that are allowed to be drive-throughs. How can they do that?
The landowners can place covenants and deed restrictions, and then pass them along, yep. I was gonna say, based on your comments, a couple things. One was on, I think, in developing our grant for the EDA riverfront concept, we pulled some numbers, and Jen, I don't know if you remember what they were, but we came up with an average percent of commercial lots, how much of them was building versus how much of them was parking, and I can't remember what it was, but I think the building itself usually occupied only between something like 15 and 20% of the lot.
Yeah.
It's a very small portion,
Parking or
so it
landscaping.
really gets to Caitlin's point about parking and how much is enough and how much is too much. And I would anticipate in the riverfront concept, maybe instead of a minimum, there may be a maximum. And that we would try to provide both on-street parking and potentially a common lot that would be available for parking. And try to take advantage of the small size that we have by having more businesses and less parking. So the riverfront district, I can point, if I don't blind Jen, but basically it's going to run from about here, which is Soldotna Creek Park, down to the RV park here, and along the river, that area.
Yeah, I think the thing for me, I'm so happy we talked about this today because I want streets in our town to be safe for everyone, especially folks who can't drive. And I think about like the kids who are biking or walking and with their grandmas, basically. It's like, how can we make all of the places in town safe for them to get to? And so I think that's like a great challenge that we get to figure out how to meet over lots of years. But there are some really cool best practices, like those 8 80 cities that are safe for an 8-year-old and an 80-year-old to navigate. I know Arup has like a kids centered cities. So basically, if you design the city to be a great place for a kid to playfully navigate, it's going to be a great city and a safe city for everyone. And I know that best practices are always changing, and I am sort of on the outside just looking at cool things, and you are staff who are doing all the work, but really appreciate getting to have this conversation and the future ones. I think this is great. Thank you.
I wonder, I don't know if you have conversations with Kenai at all, but it'll be interesting to see what they're going to do with, don't they have grant money now of some kind to develop from like Arby's to Beaver Loop, but the riverfront area? And
Yeah,
what they're going to do with
They
that?
received an ATAP grant, like they applied at the same time we did for
Okay.
ours, and they also proposed a pathway that would run from, like you said, Beaver Loop along Bridge Access Road, all the way up towards Arby's or Holiday.
I mean, it would be cool if we,
Pardon?
yeah. Go ahead.
I understand that they accepted the grant.
I've seen it in the newspaper,
Yeah.
so that's the only reason I know about it.
Right, when it happens, I do not know.
Yeah.
Similar to ours, we just, we're waiting.
It seems like we might be able to partner on getting some advice though from planning or designing, like as far as, you know, how close to the river, and do our stores, what faces the river look like, and do we have a boardwalk there, and what do the facades look for, and how do we access it? And I mean, because I think similarly, our stretch of the river and what they have the opportunity to do there, if it's not planned well.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
You know,
You're talking about
yeah.
something else. You're talking about their proposed river
Yeah.
development concept. Okay, I
Yes.
thought you were talking about their walkway.
No.
Or pathway, sorry, yeah.
No, there's a development of some
Yeah.
kind that's,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, they're undergoing a feasibility study, or they're
Mhm.
advertising for a consultant at this point.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, because I mean, a lot of whatever, or else we could just wait and see what their concepts are because and decide which ones that we like. But it seems like, yeah, consistency would be cool
Yeah.
too if they had if we both had a cool area that was a destination, like Homer, like the Spit. Yeah.
Yeah, there is, except I think there's one parcel in between there maybe that isn't city-owned. Might be Evos, might be an Evos parcel, I can't remember. But the city owns a lot of it. DOT owns a chunk of it on the corner. And then I think there's, the Tanner fishery, or the Tanner cannery that's going in by Centennial Park is another piece that's, yep, or seafood processing, I should say.
Across from the old Caribou.
Well, with that, good till next time. And next
right,
time we will have a
thank you.
meeting. I know we have already got two items for the agenda. So.
I mean, if whenever you're not going to be here, please let us know. And then if you want to attend by Zoom, that way I can make sure you have the information,
Both, either way, yeah, however you want to attend is fine. Thanks for zooming in, Mark.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.